right, everyone. Buckle up, because we are diving into some seriously weird science today. We're talking about a story out of Nepal that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, but trust me, this is the real deal. Researchers there, they weren't even trying to find this, think they might have accidentally opened a portal to another dimension.
Yeah, it's wild, right? And the thing is, these weren't, some fringe scientists messing around with things they didn't understand. This was a team of physicists running a particle accelerator experiment, kind of like what they do at CERN, the big one. Instead of finding the Higgs boson or whatever, they seem to have stumbled onto something else.
Something else. All right, so what's the official word? What are they calling these things?
They're calling them interdimensional entities, which I know sounds like something out of, a movie.
Yeah, no kidding.
But it's about as close to a description as they've gotten because, frankly, no one really knows what they are yet.
Hold on, back up a sec. How did this even happen? Did they just, flip a switch and open a doorway to another dimension?
Well, not quite like that. It seems there might have been a miscalculation during the experiment, something that created kind of breach. Think of it like, imagine you're poking around in the fabric of space-time, right? And you accidentally tear a hole right through.
Okay, that's a terrifying thought. So things from this other dimension, these entities, they can just come through now.
That seems to be the working theory, yeah. And get this, they're already trying to classify these entities, putting them into categories like some kind of interdimensional field guide. Some are, let's just say stranger than others.
Stranger how? What are we talking about here? Give us the details.
I think before we get into that, we need to address the elephant in the room.
Which is?
Sleep paralysis. All those stories of people waking up unable to move, feeling a presence in the room. It might be connected to all this.
Wait, seriously? You're telling me those sleep paralysis stories, those could be real encounters with these things?
It's a theory, but yeah, some researchers are starting to think so.
Okay, now that is creepy. I've had sleep paralysis before, and it is terrifying. But if it's not just our minds playing tricks on us, if it's really these entities, man, that's a whole other level of unsettling.
Right. It makes you wonder, what if these entities, they're able to interact with us on a whole other level, like tapping into our consciousness or something?
Okay, now that is just freaky. So, about those categories. You were saying they're trying to classify these entities. What have they come up with so far?
Well, they've identified 5 distinct types. Some seem relatively harmless, maybe even a little curious about us. But then there's the 5th type. That's where things get really interesting. And by interesting, I mean terrifying.
All right, you can't just leave us hanging like that. What's so special about this 5th type?
Well,
okay, I don't know about you, but I am officially creeped out. So before the break, we were talking about this 5th type of interdimensional entity, the one that's got everyone spooked. What is it about them that makes them so different from the others?
Well, if the other types are like, say, shadows you see out of the corner of your eye, these are more like, have you ever just felt like you're being watched?
Oh, yeah, all the time, especially when I'm home alone.
Right. But imagine that feeling, that sense of dread, but amplified like 100 times and colder somehow. Yeah. Witnesses describe a sudden drop in temperature, like a cold spot moving through the room. And sometimes
Whispers.
Okay, now you're just messing with me.
I'm not. There are actual reports of people hearing voices, but not like someone talking, more like thoughts being projected into their minds, whispering their deepest fears.
Okay, that is seriously messed up. And you're saying these things, these entities, they're linked to those cases of people dying from fright.
There's a growing body of evidence that suggests there might be a connection. Think about it. We've always attributed those cases to, an underlying medical condition, but what if it's something more?
Something we just couldn't explain before. But if these entities are real, if they can really affect us like that, what do they want? Why are they here? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's tempting to try and apply our own logic to them, but what if they operate on a completely different plane of existence, with motivations we can't even comprehend?
Like trying to understand the mind of an ant.
Exactly. But just because we can't understand them doesn't mean they're not there, and doesn't mean they're not affecting us.
Okay, so we've covered the extremes, the barely there entities, and the ones that scare the pants off us. What about the others? What's the deal with those?
It's amazing to think about, We started talking about particle physics and accidentally opened up a whole can of interdimensional worms.
That's science for you. Always full of surprises.
No kidding. But before we get too far off track, you were about to tell us about those other entity types, the ones in between harmless and help, I've seen too much. All right, so type 1, the cosmic tourists, as we call them. Imagine like a ripple in a pond. They pass through our dimension briefly, maybe causing a little shiver down your spine, but then they're gone.
So more weird vibes than actual danger.
Probably. Now, type 2, these guys are a bit more like, well, us, I guess. Curious, observant.
You said they try to mimic human behavior. That's kind of creepy, but also fascinating. Like, are they trying to blend in or something?
Maybe. Or maybe they're just trying to understand us, like anthropologists study a new culture.
Interdimensional anthropologists? Now that's a show I'd watch. But what about type 3, the intrusive ones? How are they different?
If type 2 is content to observe, type 3 is a little more hands-on. Think flickering lights, objects moving on their own, that kind of thing.
Poltergeist territory.
Sort of. Except we're talking about something potentially way more complex than just a restless spirit.
And a lot harder to explain away, right?
Exactly. And it's that level of interaction, the fact that they're actively engaging with our world, that has some people worried.
Because it suggests intention, which begs the question, what do they want?
A question that, for now, remains unanswered. But hopefully, with more research, we'll start to unravel the mystery of these interdimensional entities and their connection to our world.
Well, one thing's for sure, I don't think any of us will be looking at sleep paralysis the same way again. Big thanks to everyone for tuning in today. Keep those questions coming. And remember, sometimes the most fascinating discoveries are the ones we least expect.
And sometimes the most unsettling ones, too.
That too. Until next time, everyone, keep exploring the unknown.